The galaxy was vast, filled with countless worlds, all interconnected by the hum of endless communication and trade. Many had assumed Earth was just a quiet speck in the cosmos, its inhabitants primitive and backward. No one had ever given Earth much thought. There were no grand alliances, no military power, no advanced technology that caught the eye of the galaxy's most influential species. Earth's people went about their daily lives unaware of the sprawling universe beyond their skies. But something changed one day. Earth just went silent at first. No one noticed. It was subtle and easily dismissed. A single day passed with no transmissions, no data streams reaching the galactic network. Then another and another, but no one was worried yet, just a slight anomaly in the constant chatter of the galaxy. But then the days turned into weeks, and the silence persisted. Earth had disappeared from the galactic conversation. No one knew what had happened. A planet that once buzzed with radio signals and weak communication waves was now as still as the void itself. At first there were whispers and oddity that would pass, but as time went on the whispers turned into murmurs of concern. Those with the most advanced technologies in the galaxy couldn't explain it. Every attempt to contact Earth resulted in nothing. They scanned the skies, checked their instruments. No faint signals, no errant messages, no radio waves breaking through the silence. The galaxy was too used to a certain level of communication for the silence to be anything but unnatural. Experts theorized maybe Earth's equipment had malfunctioned, or maybe their technology was so outdated they simply couldn't keep up with the galactic network of hyper-advanced species. But as the silence stretched on, their theories became less convincing. Each new failed attempt to reach Earth sent ripples of confusion through the galaxy. A sense of unease began to take root in the hearts of many. Those who had once ignored Earth now found themselves focused on it. Questions arose. Why could they not detect anything from the planet? Why had Earth just stopped communicating? The Galactic Concord, the governing body of the galaxy, was the first to send a response team. A fleet of exploratory ships was dispatched to investigate the disappearance. But the silence only deepened. The ships made their way to Earth's orbit, scanning and probing. But all they found was a planet like any other. No sign of distress, no evidence of war or disaster, just an eerie calm surrounding the world. The fleet's captain sent a simple message back to the Concord. We cannot find any sign of what has happened. The planet seems unchanged, yet it is as if Earth simply does not exist. And that was when the first hint of true fear began to take root. The galaxy had always assumed Earth was too insignificant to ever be of concern, but now there was something unsettling about its absence, a question that no one could answer, and the more the galaxy searched, the deeper the mystery seemed to grow. And so the silence of Earth became a puzzle, one that no one knew how to solve, and yet it was clear to some that this silence was not an accident. It was a message. But what that message meant was something no one could yet understand. The silence of Earth became the topic of conversation across the galaxy. At first, it was an inconvenience, an oddity that needed attention. But as weeks passed, and the quiet stretched on, the unease turned into something more serious. The Galactic Concord called an emergency summit. Leaders from across the stars gathered to discuss the troubling disappearance of a planet they had once considered insignificant. In their minds, Earth was nothing more than a primitive world full of noise and distraction. But now that noise had ceased, and in its place was a deafening silence that rattled the foundations of the galaxy. The Concord's advisors and military commanders struggled to understand what was happening. They debated theories and sent probe after probe to investigate, but each one returned with a single message: no data, no anomaly, no sign of what was going on. Soon rumors began to spread, rumors that Earth had developed something new, something powerful, something that could make the entire planet disappear from the galactic sensors. It was the only explanation that began to make sense. The idea of a world suddenly becoming invisible to every form of detection was unimaginable, but now it seemed like a possibility no one wanted to entertain. As tensions grew, a group of high-ranking officials gathered in a closed meeting, their voices quiet as they discussed what actions to take. One by one, they offered their own theories. Some believed Earth had been taken over by an unknown force. Some thought humans had unlocked a technology so advanced that it bent the very laws of physics. Others still suggested it was a trick, one vast conspiracy designed to make the galaxy believe humanity had risen to a level it had not yet attained. The silence wasn't just a lack of noise, it was a message, something that had to be understood, but no one could interpret it. Some species began to fear the worst. They began to suspect that Earth had become a weapon, and that their sudden disappearance from the galaxy's radar was a declaration of power. A new force had emerged that no one understood, and no one could control. Rumors of secret human technology spread like wildfire, and many felt the galaxy was teetering on the edge of chaos. Meanwhile, as the panic spread, the galaxy's finest minds worked tirelessly trying to make sense of it. All they used every tool at their disposal, but every scan, every method, every calculation only led to the same conclusion: Earth was silent, and the reason why was still a mystery. It wasn't until a month had passed that the first fleet from the Galactic Concord was dispatched to investigate up close. The mission was simple: to find out what had happened to Earth and report back. But when the fleet reached the outer rim of Earth's orbit, something strange occurred. Their sensors suddenly began malfunctioning. Nothing extreme, at first just a slight fuzziness, but it only worsened as they drew closer to the planet. Communications with the fleet grew erratic, and eventually stopped altogether. The last transmission from the fleet was chilling, a faint message that barely came through: "We cannot approach the planet. There is something here we don't understand." The fleet never returned, and the silence continued. And so the galaxy was left in a state of uncertainty. All eyes turned to Earth now, not with indifference, but with fear and curiosity. What had they discovered? What had they unleashed? And was it possible for a single world to change the course of the entire galaxy? As the silence of Earth stretched on for weeks, the fear across the galaxy began to deepen. The Galactic Concord convened once more, and this time the atmosphere was far different. There was no longer any doubt that Earth had somehow acquired something powerful, something that could threaten the balance of the galaxy. Leaders from across the stars whispered about the possibilities. Some suggested that Earth had stumbled upon a weapon of unimaginable destruction. Others feared the humans had uncovered a force they could not control. The more the galaxy tried to understand, the less it made sense. All attempts to contact Earth failed, and every probe sent to investigate returned with only more questions. There were no signs of devastation, no signs of war, no unnatural energy readings. It was as if the planet was simply waiting, watching, and refusing to give up its secrets. The Galactic Concord's military council decided to take action and sent a task force to investigate this strange and unnerving situation. The fleet was large, a collection of the galaxy's best ships and brightest minds prepared to uncover the truth about Earth and its silence. They arrived near the orbit of Earth's moon and immediately began scanning the planet. Every system was checked from every angle, yet no answers appeared. Their first scans showed nothing: no unusual readings, no disturbances in space, no abnormalities in the planet's surface. Everything appeared normal, almost too normal. As they approached the planet's atmosphere, their sensors began to glitch with increasing frequency. At first, it was barely noticeable, just a flicker of static here and there, but soon it grew more intense and more frequent. It was as though Earth itself was fighting against their attempts to study it. Then something more strange happened. A pulse of energy from the planet sent shockwaves through the fleet's systems, a burst of energy so powerful that it temporarily disabled half of the ships in the fleet. The commander scrambled to regain control and issued orders to retreat, but the damage was already done. They were no closer to understanding the nature of Earth's silence than they had been when they arrived, and now they had encountered a force they couldn't even begin to comprehend. Desperate for answers, the Galactic Concord called upon the most advanced minds in the galaxy to analyze the situation. They worked around the clock, using every tool at their disposal to make sense of what had happened to Earth. How had they developed the power to shut themselves off from the rest of the galaxy? And what was the nature of the strange pulse that had disabled the fleet? Yet no one had an answer. Each new hypothesis was more outlandish than the last. No one could explain the strange phenomenon. And some began to believe that Earth was no longer just a planet. It was a living enigma, a mystery wrapped in a silence that was impossible to penetrate. The uncertainty was beginning to eat away at the confidence of the galactic leaders. They had never imagined that Earth could hold any significance, but now they were faced with the terrifying reality that Earth's silence was more than just a missing signal. It was a warning, and no one knew what it was warning them about. As the tension continued to rise across the galaxy, the silence of Earth remained unbroken, and the fear only grew stronger. With every passing day, the galaxy had never faced anything like this before, and no one knew how long they could continue to ignore it. As the silence persisted, the galaxy's fear began to shift into action. The Galactic Concord could no longer afford to wait for answers. The unknown had become too dangerous, and they needed to know what Earth was hiding before it was too late. A new fleet was assembled this time. It was not just a reconnaissance mission. It was an invasion force, a show of strength, meant to force Earth to reveal its secrets. The fleet was composed of the galaxy's finest warriors and scientists, each ship equipped with the most advanced weapons and technology. The fleet commanders knew that they were entering a situation where nothing was certain, but the potential danger was too great to ignore. If Earth had truly developed a weapon capable of rendering the galaxy powerless, they could not allow it to remain hidden any longer. They approached Earth's orbit once again, their ships gliding through the stars with all the precision and power of a well-oiled machine. But as they neared the planet, the disturbances in their sensors became more pronounced. Their communication systems began to fail. Their navigation systems flickered and crackled with static. It was as though the planet itself was reaching out to prevent them from coming any closer. The commanders issued orders to proceed cautiously, but the moment they crossed into the planet's atmosphere, everything changed. The energy pulses that had previously only been a theory now became undeniable. A wave of force swept through the fleet, disabling the first wave of ships with brutal efficiency. Their systems locked up, their weapons went offline, and their engines sputtered to a halt. Panic spread quickly among the remaining ships. They had never encountered anything like this before. They tried to regroup, but the planet continued to disrupt their technology. With every passing moment, it was as if Earth had anticipated their every move and had already prepared to defend itself against any threat. The fleet's commander realized that they were not fighting a planet, they were fighting an intelligence, one that was far beyond their understanding. Earth had become something more than just a world. It had become a force of nature, one that could shape the destiny of the entire galaxy. Desperately, the fleet tried to break free from the planet's grip, but with every attempt to retreat, their ships were drawn back in like moths to a flame. The planet's power was irresistible, its hold unyielding. It was then that the first major breakthrough occurred. One of the fleet's scientists managed to isolate a strange signal coming from deep within Earth's core. It was not a natural frequency, it was too structured, too precise, and it was unlike anything they had encountered before. The scientists theorized that it was some kind of encoded message or communication system, and that it was somehow controlling the planet's defenses. In a bold move, the fleet commander ordered the remaining ships to enter into a formation around the planet's surface to study the signal in greater detail. They would risk everything in order to learn what Earth had hidden and what it was trying to protect. But as the fleet closed in on the signal, the very ground beneath them seemed to shift. The energy waves pulsed stronger and stronger, until finally the fleet's captain issued the order to withdraw. The message had not been deciphered, but the fleet had learned one thing: Earth was not simply a planet anymore, it was a power, and it was not to be underestimated. The silence of Earth had become more than just a mystery, it had become a force of fear, and the galaxy was beginning to realize that it had no idea how to deal with it. The galaxy had never known fear like this before. The silence of Earth had grown into something far more menacing than anyone had anticipated. As the failed fleets returned and the reports from the field were shared, a chilling realization settled in. The Galactic Concord had underestimated humanity. They had assumed Earth to be weak and unimportant, but now they faced a force that was unlike anything they had ever encountered. With their previous attempts at military action failing and their technology unable to pierce through the silence, the galaxy's leaders were left with no other option. They had no choice but to consider a different path, one that would require diplomacy and negotiation. The Galactic Concord decided to send a delegation to Earth to offer them a chance to explain themselves and to hopefully find a way to coexist in the galaxy. The ambassadors sent to Earth were some of the most experienced diplomats from across the galaxy. They were trained in the arts of persuasion and negotiation, and they were tasked with convincing Earth's leaders to share their technology and secrets with the rest of the galaxy. But even as they prepared for the journey, they knew it would be risky. No one truly understood the power Earth held, and no one knew how the humans would respond to being approached after all these years of silence. The ambassadors arrived on Earth's surface in a carefully coordinated operation. Their ships touched down on the outskirts of a vast city that seemed almost abandoned, yet it was not a ghost town. Instead, it was a city of stark beauty and unsettling stillness. The atmosphere was thick with anticipation as the delegation made its way to the meeting hall where they would meet with Earth's leaders. When the human representatives appeared, they were not what the galaxy expected. They did not wear the clothes of royalty or military uniforms. There were no grand gestures or formal titles. Instead, they appeared in simple attire that radiated a quiet confidence. Their demeanor was calm but firm, and their presence alone commanded attention. The lead human representative began to speak, and the silence of Earth was broken for the first time since the galaxy had discovered the planet had gone dark. "We have been waiting for this moment," the representative said. "We have watched as the galaxy fought and struggled for control. We have seen the chaos and destruction that has plagued your worlds, and we have learned from it. Now, we offer you the chance to live differently, to find peace together. But you must understand, we will not share our power with you unless we know you are ready." The words were simple, but they carried a weight that none of the diplomats had anticipated. The humans were not offering their technology freely. They were offering a choice. The galaxy could either accept their terms and join them in a new way of thinking, or face the consequences of continuing the endless cycle of war and conquest. The diplomats were stunned. They had expected negotiation, not a bold declaration of human strength and independence. They tried to reason with the humans, offering to work together and promising to share knowledge. But the humans were resolute. They would not be swayed. Their silence had been a test, and the galaxy had failed. The meeting ended with no agreement reached, but the message had been clear. Earth was not afraid of the galaxy's might, nor was it interested in being a part of the endless power struggles that had defined galactic politics. Humanity had grown beyond the petty conflicts that had defined the rest of the universe. As the ambassadors returned to their ships and made their way back to the Galactic Concord, their minds were filled with the weight of what they had just learned. Earth had something the galaxy could not understand, and the fear of that power was growing stronger with every passing day. The return of the diplomatic delegation to the Galactic Concord was met with a silence that mirrored the one surrounding Earth. Their reports were met with a mixture of confusion and disbelief. The galaxy's leaders had not expected humanity to reject their overtures. They had assumed that once faced with the vast power and unity of the Galactic Concord, Earth would relent and open itself to cooperation. But instead, humanity had shown its own strength, its own determination, and its own desire for control. The message from Earth had been clear and unwavering. They were not interested in joining the galaxy's endless political struggles, nor did they seek alliances with the great powers that ruled the stars. They had one demand, and one demand only: that the galaxy prove it could rise above the chaos and violence that had plagued it for so long. In the days that followed, the Galactic Concord met in emergency sessions trying to decide how to respond, but the truth was no one knew how to deal with a planet that had suddenly grown so powerful, so self-sufficient, and so resolute in its silence. The once dismissed humans had become a force to be reckoned with. Some factions within the Galactic Concord argued that the only way to deal with Earth was through force. They believed humanity's refusal to cooperate could only be seen as a threat, and that the galaxy had no choice but to neutralize this new power. Others, however, saw the humans' actions as a sign of something deeper, a call for peace and cooperation that the galaxy had long ignored. They believed that Earth's actions were not an assertion of dominance, but an offer of a new way forward, one where peace could replace war and division. The debate grew heated as representatives from various star systems clash over the best course of action. The military leaders pushed for a swift and decisive strike, believing that humanity's silence and refusal to cooperate was the first sign of an emerging threat, while diplomats argued that they needed to find a way to reach out to Earth and understand its motivations before making any rash decisions. Meanwhile, Earth remained silent as ever no further transmissions came from the planet. Its defenses stayed in place, and its presence loomed like a shadow over the galaxy. The humans had made their stance clear. They were not interested in negotiation unless the galaxy could prove itself worthy of their trust. As the weeks passed, the tension in the galaxy continued to rise. Some species began to fear that the humans would take matters into their own hands and launch an attack against the galaxy out of frustration at being ignored and misunderstood. Others believed that Earth would continue to hold out until the galaxy was forced to meet its terms one way or another. But no one truly knew what the humans were planning. No one understood the full extent of their capabilities. In the midst of the growing uncertainty, a new movement began to emerge within the galaxy. Some of the more peaceful factions began to advocate for a new approach. They called for the galaxy to come together, not to fight against Earth, but to learn from it, to take the lessons of its silence and its strength and apply them to the conflicts that had torn the galaxy apart for centuries. But these voices were still drowned out by those who saw Earth's actions as an existential threat and who believed that any concession to humanity would be seen as weakness. The uncertainty lingered as the galaxy watched and waited, unsure of how long the silence would last or what it would take to finally break it. As the days turned into months, the tension in the galaxy continued to grow. The silence of Earth had become an insurmountable weight hanging over every star system. No one could predict what humanity would do next. No one could understand the true scope of their intentions. The Galactic Concord had fractured into two factions, those who called for peaceful engagement with Earth and those who demanded a military solution. Despite the growing divide within the Concord, no one could ignore the fact that Earth's power was real, its technology far beyond what anyone had assumed, and its resolve was undeniable. The human representatives had made it clear they would not be swayed by threats or promises of cooperation. The galaxy had to prove itself worthy before any dialogue could even begin. In the midst of this deadlock, a new event occurred, one that would send shockwaves through the galaxy. A fleet of unknown origin appeared near the outer rim of the galaxy. Its ships, unlike any seen before, they were sleek and silent, moving with an eerie precision and a level of sophistication that rivaled the most advanced ships in the galaxy. At first, there was confusion. The fleet did not appear to be affiliated with any known species. No one recognized their markings or language, and their technology was so advanced that even the most experienced scientists could not decipher it. The fleet simply hung in space, watching the galaxy as though waiting for something. The Galactic Concord convened once again to address the situation, but this time the mood was different. The fleet's sudden arrival had shifted the balance of power even further. The galaxy was no longer just facing Earth, it was now facing an unknown entity whose power could be as great or greater than Earth's. As representatives from across the galaxy debated how to handle the new threat, the silence of Earth remained an ever-present force in the background. Some began to wonder if the two were connected. Were these mysterious ships somehow related to the humans? Was Earth hiding a power so vast that it had attracted the attention of these unknown beings? The ambassadors who had been sent to Earth months earlier were recalled, and new attempts at communication were made with the mysterious fleet, but they too remained silent. No response came to the Galactic Concord's attempts to initiate contact. The fleet continued to move through the galaxy without a single word or gesture to indicate its intentions. With this new development, the debates grew even more heated. Those who had once called for peace with Earth now feared that the humans were not only capable of unimaginable power, but that they might be aligned with these unknown beings, and together they might pose a threat to the entire galaxy. But others continued to advocate for peace. They believed that humanity's silence had been a statement, a warning, not an act of aggression, and that if the galaxy was willing to listen to the humans and learn from them, there was still hope for a new path forward. As the galaxy watched in uncertainty, the question remained unanswered: what was the true nature of Earth's power, and what was the role of the mysterious fleet in this growing conflict? The galaxy had been forced to confront a reality it was unprepared for, and it was beginning to dawn on everyone that this was only the beginning of a much larger story. The tension in the galaxy reached a breaking point as the unknown fleet moved through the stars with an eerie calm. They did not show signs of aggression, but their presence was enough to send shockwaves through every system that had once felt safe in the vastness of space. The Galactic Concord could no longer ignore the truth. Earth had awakened a force greater than any had anticipated, and now the galaxy was faced with the unknown, not just in the form of humanity, but in the mysterious fleet that had arrived from beyond the rim. The divide within the Galactic Concord deepened. There were those who argued that the fleet represented an even greater threat than Earth itself, and that the only way to protect the galaxy was to strike before they were struck upon, while others suggested that the galaxy's best hope was to reach out to the humans and try to find a way to unite with them against this new force. The more the galaxy debated, the more it became clear that no one knew what to do. The uncertainty was suffocating. Meanwhile, Earth continued to watch from the shadows. Its silence had never wavered. It had been a constant reminder to the galaxy of its power, its unwillingness to engage, and its refusal to be drawn into the political chaos that had consumed the stars for millennia. The humans had shown they were capable of things that no one had ever imagined, yet they had offered no explanation, no clarification of their motives or intentions. As the galaxy prepared for what seemed to be an inevitable conflict, the first sign of change came not from the mysterious fleet, but from Earth itself. Without warning, a signal was sent out to the galaxy. It was not a message of peace, nor a declaration of war. It was something different, a call to action, a challenge that shook every corner of the galaxy. The signal was simple but powerful, a single line of text repeated over and over again. "Prove yourselves worthy." Those 3 words reverberated through the galaxy, sending ripples of shock across the stars. No one knew what it meant, no one knew how to interpret it. But one thing was certain: Earth had made its position clear. It was no longer just a silent observer. It was now an active player in the fate of the galaxy, and it was challenging the galaxy to step up. In the days that followed, leaders from across the galaxy scrambled to understand what this message meant. Some saw it as a final warning, others believed it was a test, a challenge to the galaxy to prove that it could rise above its endless conflict and show the strength of unity, but no one could agree on what it meant or how to respond. The mysterious fleet remained as silent as ever, and Earth's silence continued to cast a shadow over the galaxy. The tension reached its peak as factions across the galaxy began to prepare for whatever would come next. The military forces were on high alert, ready for an engagement with the fleet or with Earth itself, while those in favor of diplomacy worked tirelessly to form a new strategy that could lead to peace. But even as the galaxy prepared for the unknown, no one could escape the growing realization that this silence was not just a challenge to the galaxy. It was a turning point, a moment in history that would shape the future of the galaxy forever. What Earth had done was not just an act of defiance. It was a signal that the galaxy was standing at the precipice of a new era, one that could either lead to peace or to destruction. And as the galaxy watched and waited, one thing became clear: the silence of Earth was not the end of the story. It was just the beginning.